Director of BTS Business Management Office from TransLink, Kurt Pregler, Chief Information Officer from TransLink, Brendan McCabe, Director of Enterprise Commercial Business of the Pacific West from Microsoft, Jerry Ackerman, President and Chair of the CIO Association of Canada, and Tino Finodi, Director of Customer Success from Microsoft. It is also my pleasure to introduce to you our judging facilitators, CK Kaligota from Simon Fraser University and JM Go, also from Simon Fraser University. We are excited for your presentation, but before we begin, we would like to remind the competitors of a few presentation guidelines. You will have exactly 15 minutes of protected time to present your solution. At the conclusion of your presentation, judges will then have 10 minutes to ask questions. At the end of these periods, competitors and judges are not permitted to continue speaking, even if the time ends while they are in mid-sentence. An iPad will be used to time the presentations and the Q&A period. You will be responsible for keeping track of your own time. Please note that competitors are not permitted to reveal their university, country, or city of origin during or after the presentations. And just as a gentle reminder for those in the audience, please remember to silence your phones. Thank you and all the best. Competitors, you may now begin your presentation whenever you're ready.
TransLink has the opportunity to grow based on the one priority of them, their drivers and their passengers. By implementing a digital twin, you will have the opportunity to analyze and develop as well as go through the implementation. Sorry, my apologies. To go through and implement and analyze your system in order to create a digital twin that will optimize and create a more sustainable solution for you. Hi, I'm Ethan, and today I have with me Daryl, Sergey, and Axa, and we are United Consulting. Today, you have asked us how TransLink can develop a digital twin system that will digital twin system to improve the transit efficiency and to support the long-term growth. Through our analysis, we identified a few key issues, including the fragmented data, the aging transit infrastructure, along with the complex regulations and stakeholder preferences. Our solution, the Twin Transit Transformation, includes a hybrid digital twin model, a phased implementation and change management program, along with achieving sustainability and data monetization. By following our suggestion, we anticipate you will see a 15% decrease in maintenance costs, a 20% increase in transit speeds, alongside a 10x ROI over the course at the end of the 6-year implementation. Now, let's step back. I'm going to hand it over to Sergey to take a look at your current implementation.
Thanks, Ethan. So now we just want to take a minute to talk about some of the external factors affecting your operations in British Columbia. Firstly, it's no secret that the population of Metro Vancouver is growing, and it's growing pretty rapidly. In less than 20 years, you can expect 1 million more residents. That's 1 million more people that could potentially be relying on your services to meet their transportation needs. Now, this is actually quite the cause for concern, because you had recently just jumped back to pre-COVID numbers, and these pre-COVID numbers actually took a hit for your perception in reliability and overcrowdedness. But you're not alone in facing these challenges. Many transit agencies across the globe are facing similar challenges, and they're looking towards digital twin solutions to solve these. Digital twin is essentially just a digital map created using sensors and scanners that give you a more holistic view of your operations and allow for more powerful insights. What are some key examples that we can look for internationally? We found some aside from the ones mentioned in the case, such as what had occurred in San Francisco. They partnered with San Arcadius to implement a digital twin using LiDAR scanners in their buses and trams, and this allowed them to optimize their traffic planning system. Also in Japan, they implemented a similar technology, but they used it particularly for disaster planning, which just goes to show how flexible these digital twin solutions are, how customizable they are, and also how there's no one-size-fits-all approach to adopting them. Now I'm going to pass things over to Daryl to talk a bit more about how your internal capabilities are going to impact your implementation.
Thank you, Sergey. So, as we know, TransLink actually has a lot of data fragmentation. It's getting data from multiple different sources in various locations, but it's unable to process this data under a centralized model. Additionally, TransLink is unable to use all of its data to its full potential because it's being restricted, such as its data that's being restricted from data that's held by Atkins Reales. Additionally, TransLink should also consider that it just recently went through a costly digital transformation, moving from multiple platforms onto a centralized platform on Microsoft Azure. Additionally, its Compass card system isn't able to process real-time data until at least 2031. And finally, while TransLink is able to upload data, it's often riddled with delays. While TransLink does face many issues, some issues do take priority over other issues. For example, under a survey done by TransLink, many customers realized that the bus transit network actually faces many major issues. Faces the most amount of issues. And this is important because the bus network actually contains most of the ridership, and given that the state of SkyTrain is actually doing decently well right now, it's important that TransLink actually redirect its resources to the bus network, because that's how you are going to build success in the near future and in the long term. To go over our solution recommendation, I'm going to now pass it over to Sergey.
Thanks, Daryl. So now we'd like to introduce the Triple T solution, which is going to help us address some of those key problems that we pointed out earlier. The data fragmentation, the unsure approach about how to adopt the digital twin solution, and also keeping in mind all the considerations and constraints impacting this. We recommend a centralized digital system platform, implementing that in a phased approach, adopting change management policies, and also creating long-term sustainability by monetizing data. Now, that leads us to one of our first important questions. Are you going to develop the digital twin in-house, or should you look towards vendors and outsource this? There's pros and cons to each. If you were to develop this internally, it'd be very costly. You would also be lacking the post-implementation support that you would get with a vendor, meaning that if there's a critical error, you're going to be the ones responsible for fixing it. However, it does offer better customization. In terms of potential vendors we looked at, Bentley, they're the ones who supplied Singapore with their digital twin. It's very costly, but they do have great off-the-shelf solutions. Some other smaller and more local vendors include Cordell and LuxModus, who are more tailored to either buses and trams or trains. Cordell has a great predictive maintenance system using AI, and LuxModus has showcased their capabilities in developing digital twins through buses and trams in New York and some other cities. Now, which one should we go with? We actually recommend a dual approach, adopting both Cordell and LuxModus. This will allow you to capitalize on the strengths of both these companies while also simultaneously being very cost effective. Now, how are you going to adopt all three of these systems internally with Azure? That leads us to relying on Fireware. They're a company that has created a framework to allow you for seamless adoption between all of these digital assets, so think the LiDAR scans, the digital twin, and also allows you to connect all of these segmented IoT devices nicely within the Azure platform. And to do this, it has a comprehensive set of APIs. Now I'm going to pass things over to Ethan to talk a bit more how you can manage the people in this development.
Thank you, Sergey. With developing a digital twin, it is complex, with many different variables that you cannot measure, sometimes out of your reach, that you need to be able to manage effectively. We propose that you need to have an implementation strategy that is direct and clear that you will follow. Through a 6-phase approach, starting with the supplier negotiations. As Sergey mentioned, with multiple suppliers being involved, everybody needs to be on the same page. Everybody needs to understand what is happening and what is the end goal. And having those negotiations are incredibly important right off the bat. Moving on, then there would be your bus development. Daryl mentioned that the buses are the #1 issue and the #1 priority that we'll be taking first. You'll be starting off with development, and through development, you'll be having a pilot program. The pilot program will then eventually reach all across up to a total of 50 bus routes. This will subsequently go along with the train side of operations, starting in year 4, where the train will be developed, it will be piloted, then will be a widespread adoption throughout Vancouver. Looking into the future, you'll have the optimization opportunity with AI, where you will have optimized routes plannings and operations through there. Alongside implementation, there's a few key stakeholders that you need to keep in mind. Starting with the Mayor's Council, there is the Greater Vancouver Regional District, alongside the BC Ministry of Transport and Transportation, and then once again, the Unifor Workers Unions. To ensure compatibility and to ensure clarity across all departments and successful this project, everybody needs to be on the same page and aligned. In order to do this, we propose having quarterly meetings where everybody sits down and understands the current phase and have full transparency of what is happening. We will be discussing KPIs, which will be mentioned shortly, and as well as other initiatives and issues that do arise. We understand this is a lot, especially for employees, and we need to ensure that they are confident about what is happening. We propose having a strong change management approach that is a three-phased. Starting with the prepare approach, you will be having employees with you. You'll be having employees directly in contact with you right off the bat. You'll be incorporating them into all proposals and all solutions and understand, so they fully understand what is happening. You'll be moving on to the manage the change. How will this be done? You will be having a training before rollout to ensure everybody has clear access and has understanding of what is being done to ensure that there's full adoption of this. And then you'll be looking, how can this be sustained? Communication. Communication is incredibly important. 57% of IT projects fail because of this. To monitor the success of this project in implementation and change management, there's a few KPIs that you need to keep in mind. The first being the adoption rate and then the employee engagement. Now, to take a look at the third and final approach to our pillar, I'm going to pass it back over to Daryl.
Thank you, Ethan. So by implementing our recommendation, Translink can derive benefits in multiple areas, not just economic, but also in its operational efficiency. By implementing our solution, Translink can see a reduction of GHG emissions by up to 26%, a 15 to 25% reduction in cost of maintenance, a 20% increase in transit speed across its network, and a 72% reduction of delays across its transit network. Additionally, implementing digital twins allows Translink to derive incredible valuable data, which can be used and sold to external stakeholders, such as city developers and advertisers. Now, we understand that selling data often comes with a lot of risk. So in order to mitigate these risks, we're ensuring that Translink complies with PPADA guidelines, ensures that buyers are promoting UN SDG goals, SDGs, and also ensuring that buyers have a carbon neutral plan for the long term, so that we ensure that Translink is selling to responsible buyers. And by implementing our solution, Translink can see up to $46 million of revenue by the end of year 6. And now I'll pass it over to Aksa to talk about our implementation.
Thank you, Daryl. Now let's have a look at our implementation plan. We expect this plan to take about 6 years to implement, beginning with the digital twin infrastructure. Initially, we want to have great conversations in the first year with Lux, Modus, and Cordell, ensuring that negotiations go through and we've succeeded in confirming contracts. In years 2 and 3, we're going to be focusing more so on the bus networks in the digital twin, and 4 and 5 more so on the railway networks. After this system has been put into place, we want to make sure that we maintain this system, obviously, but we can use Cordell's AI capabilities to integrate into this system and gain more insights out of it. With the change management aspect of it, years 1 and 2 are going to be prepared solely focusing on preparing employees for the change that they will be working with, making sure that there's open communication and making sure there's transparency in what these changes are going to look like, and then following along with sustaining this and retaining this open communication mindset. Lastly, the data monetization strategy is going to start a little delayed because we have to wait for our pilot to start. After this pilot starts, we can begin collecting data, analyzing it, and putting it in the form of commercialized reports that will then be available for commercial purchasing. Key KPIs in all 3 of these components, the first one being that we want 15% fuel cost reduction in year 4 by our digital twins infrastructure. We want to have a 62% adoption rate in our change management, and we want to have a revenue of $23 million in our data monetization strategy by year 4. Now you might be wondering, as amazing as the solution is, how much is it going to cost? Taking into consideration things such as the hardware that we need for sensors, the infrastructure, the API integrations, the softwares, everything, and even, this is not an exhaustive list, obviously, but we've come up with a number that over 6 years, it's going to cost $17.48 million. Now, with this cost associated over the 6 years, we can expect a $28 million in total benefits by year 6. This is largely due to the cost savings that you'll be getting from the cost, fuel and maintenance reduction in cost, and also the data monetization model bringing in revenue. We expect an ROI in year 6 to be about 10 times and positive NPV for this project of $76 million. With every project like this, there are risks to be considered, but the major risk in this is data privacy. We're collecting customer data and sensitive information, and to mitigate this, we want to ensure we're going to be preparing and ensuring our compliance with the data guidelines to make sure that the data is secure and private. Sorry, it's not clicking for some reason. To link is to connect, and TransLink wants to connect its people through a digital twin infrastructure by increasing operational efficiencies in their future growth. To do so, we, United Consulting, propose twin transit transformation with a digital twin system, a phased approach, and a change management program that would achieve sustainability and data monetization. By following this, you'll have a 15% decrease in maintenance costs, 20% increase in transit speeds, and a 10 times ROI in year 6 of your project. Thank you for your attention to our presentation, and we're eager to hear your thoughts on our digital twin solution.
One of the main things that was talked about on one slide was the change management approach, and it at a high level spoke to some of the concerns unionized staff would have. I'm curious, like, what are the primary concerns you anticipate through implementing a solution like this from the workforce standpoint?
Of course. So with the union, they require that anytime there's a transformation or anytime there's a technical adoption, that there is clear guidelines that is set out in front of you. So the biggest thing that there will be is mainly the hesitance to change, as in, oh, why are we doing this? So the key part is, oh, sorry, my slide, please. The key part is what you want to do is inform them, why is this happening? And get them involved and get them excited about it. If they are still hesitant to this change, that is where the champions come involved. The champions are going to be identified people who are involved and who are excited about this solution, or excited about this project. To have them involved and have them partnering and working with them, so that they are fully confident and acceptable of what is happening. That would be kind of the goal going through forward.
So, what I got from your presentation was that it looks like you're looking at 4 actual digital twins. A digital twin of the network, the movement, etc., and a digital twin on the maintenance side for each of the modes of transportation, bus and for rail. You mentioned one of the concerns we have to look at, therefore, is personal information and watching for PIPEDA. I'm unclear where the personal information comes in on those types of digital twin developments.
That's a great question. Let me take that for you. So to clarify our solution, it is going to only be a single digital twin, not multiple. And it is just a twin that will be constantly upgraded and updated according to the bus systems that are going to have these sensors placed on them and then collecting data on top of that, bus and railway. We just wanted to begin with the bus systems first, just because we understand that operational efficiencies there are a big pain point for certain customers perhaps, and that would be a great area to tackle to begin with.
Maybe on this slide, it's a good segue. The tie-out across the vendors, when you're potentially splitting some of the implementation, some of the complexity. How did you think through that part?
I can take that one for sure. So the reason we kind of opted for a split approach is because a lot of these vendors, the ones who have really comprehensive skill sets, meaning that they do trams, trains, all that, those are very expensive. That's why we typically look for kind of industry experts in particular trams, buses, and trains. The hybrid approach of adopting both was that, so Cordell is very flexible. They have even a program where you can bring your own IoT devices in whatever current platform you're using. Typically, digital twins software, the providers of these know that they're very customizable. They're very experienced with working with large companies that have differing levels of kind of readiness for adoption. So it just made sense, especially considering Cordell has very great AI maintenance, predictive maintenance capabilities. They've worked with pretty notable, they've worked with Amtrak, British Railways, they've worked with a number of larger companies, so they're very familiar with that. And Lux Modus is a local Calgary-based Canadian company who's proven themselves capable of developing specifically tailored for buses first. That would be kind of the fundamental platform, which we can then add Cordell to.
Can I just ask a follow-up on that two-vendor approach? In your analysis or research that you did you come up or did you identify any use cases of other transit authorities or transportation organizations globally that have taken that approach versus a single vendor approach?
Yeah, so I can answer that question. There are many cities, such as the city of San Francisco, that use multiple vendors. And the reason why this is the case is oftentimes some vendors are stronger in one areas versus other areas. So for example, Cordell is stronger when it comes to like rail, but then our other vendor might be stronger in the bus network infrastructure side of things. So with Fireware, actually what happens is that it makes integrating different vendors very easily thanks to its ability to kind of like incorporate different APIs.
When you were looking at the industry examples, did you get into any of the data or any proven ROI numbers in order to substantiate your estimates? Was there some real hard benefits that the other cities have achieved?
So when it comes to so if you go to our calculation slide, so through our calculation, for example, implementing our solution, we can see in regards to the data monetization. So this was done by there have been case studies where some transit agencies have kind of used data and sold it to sellers such as Uber or city and condo developers because data such as like foot traffic data can be incredibly valuable. And we, through a case study done by the UIPI, which is kind of like an agency that also works with like other transit agencies in Europe, specifically the city of Vienna. They've actually noticed that like this is our rough estimate. This is a conservative guess of like the kind of revenue that we can develop based on our the data monetization strategy that we have set out.
Thank you.
I'm just curious on the Mike's build decision and the evaluation criteria behind that. So you're recommending a buy here with the two vendors. What do you think we may lose with not building? Is there anything that in the evaluation criteria that we may lose by not building?
So that is a very good question. Generally, the vendors are pretty flexible in meeting your requirements. However, if you're relying on them for maybe certain upgrades, you would be that would kind of start new conversations, and that may lead to certain costs. But we found that those costs, like if you want a specific upgrade or some sort of technical initiative with their offerings, that may need to be renegotiated. But we found that that would be less costly than having a stacked team on hand or contracting out consultants or outside developers, because again, you're sacrificing the post-implementation support. All these agencies offer that, which is something that is very beneficial. You would not be taking the flak for any downfall or any failures, critical failures, and you would have specialists there to support you in solving them.
Okay, thank you.
There's a known constraint on the Compass side for ridership data. Did you think about ways to proxy that, or how, when that system is ultimately available, to be integrated with more real-time data that might impact some of the solution you're building here?
So regarding to that question. So what Fireware does is that it actually allows easy, and it's a framework that many organizations follow, but it's more like a kind of like a building, or it's like a framework that allows many companies to kind of put components and build it kind of like Legos. So you can include additional software in the long term, and there shouldn't be any it makes it very easy to kind of integrate different software components for the long term.
So you mentioned a 20% speed improvement would result from the digital twin. Buses run on the road with other factors at play. I'm curious to know what other data sources you would need and where those data sources would come from.
So actually, I'll answer that question. So our numbers are actually derived from a case study done by when they implemented digital twins in the city of San Francisco. So the trams that, the city of San Francisco actually put these sensors on both buses and trams. And in San Francisco, there are some places where the trams do run on the roads as well. So this does consider both like the road network and the tram network itself. And then in terms of your data question, is that correct? Can you address that second part?
The second part was, what would be the sources of the other data that you identify that you need, and where would you get that from?
Yeah, so when it comes to like, for example, weather data or maps data, that could be using like things like Google Maps API or OpenStreet API, and also like any sort of open source APIs could also work in that case.
The Q&A time is now complete. Thank you to our competitors for your presentation and to our judges for your questions. Competitors, at this time, please exit through the doors on my right. We will begin the next presentation shortly. Judges, you may now use this time before the next presentation to individually deliberate.